Billy the Kid, one of the most iconic outlaws of the Wild West, lived a short but remarkable life, dying at just 21 years old. His story is surrounded by mystery and legend. Let's dive a little deeper into the history of this enigmatic figure. Born in 1859, Henry McCarty, who would later become known as Billy the Kid, was the son of Catherine, an Irish immigrant who landed in New York. The details of his birth are unclear. No one knows exactly when he was born or if his parents were married. What we do know is that Billy spent his childhood in the poor neighborhoods of Manhattan or Brooklyn, where living conditions were extremely harsh. Billy the Kid's life is often seen as tragic, given his early death and the tough realities he faced from a young age. His name has remained in history as a symbol of rebellion and the fight for survival in the unforgiving Wild West. In the peak of the 1860s, Billy was living in a time of extreme population density, with nearly 300,000 people crammed into every square kilometer. The Irish, the group Billy was part of, faced severe housing restrictions, often forced into the most unsanitary slums. It's believed that Billy might have shared a tiny 12-square-meter room with up to 20 other people. The conditions were so bad that diseases thrived, and the infant mortality rate among the Irish reached an alarming 25%. Surviving to the age of 21, like Billy did, was almost a heroic feat given those challenges. His childhood was a picture of poverty and hardship in the New York ghettos, a sharp contrast to the wild and violent life that awaited him in the Wild West. After the Civil War ended, Billy and his mother moved to Indianapolis. At that time, his mother was a single woman starting a new chapter in her life by getting involved with William Antrim. In 1870, Billy and his family's life took a promising turn when they moved to Wichita, Kansas. There, his mother, Catherine, started her own laundry business. The business thrived, allowing them to buy a plot of land on the outskirts of town. William, Catherine's partner, built a cabin and a storm cellar with the help of Billy and his younger brother, Joe. It seemed like the family was finally finding stability and happiness in Wichita. However, Billy's luck soon took a drastic turn. In 1871, his mother was diagnosed with tuberculosis. At the time, many doctors believed that dry climates could help people with the disease. So the family packed up everything and moved to the New Mexico territory. Billy was only 14 years old when his mother passed away from tuberculosis. Even though William had officially become his stepfather, he showed little interest in taking care of the boys. He sent them to separate foster homes, abandoning them. Up until that point, Billy seemed like a law-abiding young man. Billy managed to find an honest job at a hotel, where he did a bit of everything from washing dishes to serving tables. Alongside his work, he also attended school. However, things started to take a turn for him. According to the website HistoryNet, Billy's first slip-up was stealing food. A few months later, he got involved in a prank with a friend, which involved stealing a package of clothes. Unfortunately, Billy was ratted out. The sheriff, only intending to scare him, locked him up in a cell for a few days. But Billy took the situation seriously and escaped by climbing up the chimney. With no family and thinking he was now a fugitive, Billy found himself alone as a teenager in one of the most dangerous regions in the country. In the Wild West, the dangers were endless. Criminals, violent drunks, vengeful prostitutes, wild animals, diseases, accidents, attacks by Native Americans, and even extreme weather. According to the website Legends of America, 2 years after his escape, Billy encountered a blacksmith named Frank Windy Cahill, who amused himself by constantly teasing the young man. In a confrontation that ended tragically on August 17, 1877, the tension between Billy and the blacksmith Frank Windy Cahill reached its peak. Cahill insulted Billy with a harsh slur, calling him a pimp, and Billy fired back with an equally offensive comment. Cahill then resorted to physical violence, knocking Billy to the ground and pinning him down. In a moment of desperation, Billy pulled out a gun and shot Cahill, who died from his injuries the next day. A witness at the scene claimed that Billy acted in self-defense. Without waiting to face the consequences, Billy fled, officially becoming a fugitive from the law. Sometime later, Billy was arrested for stealing horses. While he was in custody, John Tunstall, the owner of the horses, came to visit him. After a conversation between the two, Tunstall dropped the charges and offered Billy a job, giving him the chance to have the father figure he had been missing. However, Tunstall was involved in an escalating land dispute. On February 18, 1878, he was brutally murdered by a militia, an event witnessed by Billy that deeply scarred the young man. Although the story of Billy swearing revenge at the grave of his adoptive father is more legend than fact, it's true that he got caught up in a brutal conflict known as the Lincoln County War. Over the intense 5 months that followed, the violence escalated with shootouts and revenge killings on both sides. Billy's reputation as a killer grew, and he was blamed for more deaths than he actually caused, though he definitely did take some lives, including that of a sheriff. By the end of the conflict, with his side defeated, Billy emerged with the reputation of being one of the most skilled gunslingers in the West. In 1879, the governor of the New Mexico Territory, Lew Wallace, learned of Billy's willingness to surrender and cooperate with the law in exchange for having the charges against him dropped. The two met to discuss the matter, and Wallace offered a simple deal. Billy would need to testify against those involved in the conflict in exchange for a full pardon. Billy agreed to the deal, promising to testify against his former comrades. As part of the deal, Billy was supposed to be temporarily jailed just for appearances and would remain in custody until the trial. His testimony was crucial in convicting at least one high-ranking criminal. However, despite Governor Wallace's instructions, the district attorney didn't follow through with the promise to release Billy after his cooperation. Without the pardon he was promised, Billy found himself with no other choice but to escape from jail once again and return to life as a fugitive. The book Billy the Kid, A Short and Violent Life suggests that the pardon could have given Billy a real chance to start over and live an honest and successful life. Billy wasn't exactly the biggest villain of the Wild West, but it seems like the law at the time had a particular focus on hunting him down. Even though Billy should have been a free man, legal troubles kept him trapped in a cycle of crime. It didn't take long for him to go back to his old ways, forming a gang and resuming cattle rustling. During this time, Billy settled near Fort Sumner, where he befriended Pat Garrett, a bartender who, according to some reports, may have even taken part in a few of the gang's criminal activities. The American West often blurred the lines between heroes and villains, so it wasn't too surprising when Garrett was elected sheriff of Lincoln County. In this new role, Garrett found himself in the tough position of having to go after an old friend. The hunt for Billy was marked by ambushes and violent confrontations that resulted in several deaths, although Billy always managed to escape, showing an almost uncanny ability to sense and avoid danger. Billy, known for his sense of humor even in tough situations, took his capture lightly. On December 23rd, shortly after Governor Wallace announced a $500 reward for his capture, Pat Garrett and his team finally managed to arrest Billy alive. From his cell, he joked with a reporter saying, "What's the point of seeing the dark side of everything? The joke's on me this time." At that time, Billy the Kid's image swung between that of a folk hero and a feared criminal. He was the hot topic in both sensationalized news articles and heated bar conversations, where his exploits were often exaggerated. According to the legends, Billy would threaten his enemies with a string of boom, 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 hinting at wild shootouts with anyone who stood in his way, including sheriffs. After spending months in a Santa Fe jail, Billy's trial finally began in April 1881, further fueling the legend of the young outlaw. Billy the Kid, already infamous for his numerous crimes, was sentenced to death after being convicted of killing Sheriff William Brady during the intense Lincoln County War. The verdict came after just one day of deliberations, and his execution was set for May 13th. However, Billy had no intention of waiting around to meet his fate. Under the strict watch of two guards, James Bell and Robert Ollinger, and chained up on the second floor of the courthouse, he was in a desperate situation. In a surprising turn of events, Billy managed to get his hands on a gun. The exact circumstances are unclear. Rumors suggest that an old gang member may have hidden a pistol in an unlikely spot, like a toilet. Or perhaps Billy took Bell's gun. With the pistol in hand, Billy shot Bell and, now armed with a shotgun, waited for Ollinger, who was drawn by the sound of the gunfire. When Ollinger arrived, Billy greeted him with a sarcastic, "Hello, Bob," before firing. After the shootout, Billy stole a horse and fled town, once again escaping custody. Though he got away this time, his freedom would be short-lived, as Pat Garrett, well aware of Billy's knack for escaping, was determined not to let him slip through his fingers again. Garrett, a sheriff at the time, faced criticism for seeming uninterested in the hunt for the young fugitive. He defended his actions by saying he was working quietly on his strategies. Surprisingly, the young man, known as Billy, never left New Mexico, even though it would have been easy to escape elsewhere. Instead, he chose to return to Fort Sumner, where he didn't bother hiding. Within a few months, Garrett tracked him down. On the night of July 14, 1881, a decisive scene unfolded at the home of Peter Maxwell, a local rancher. Garrett went there to investigate Billy's whereabouts. By chance, Billy showed up at the same time carrying meat for dinner. He walked into the house unaware that Garrett, now his enemy, was there. In Spanish, Billy asked, "Who is it?" According to Garrett, this was the moment when Billy hesitated for the first time, losing his usual quick reflexes. That hesitation cost him his life, as Garrett didn't waste any time and shot Billy in the heart with one of the bullets. Billy the Kid, who died at 21, barely lived 2 decades, but his brief time in the spotlight left a deep mark on popular culture. Despite his short life, his name and image have been widely adapted and reinvented. According to the book Billy the Kid, The Endless Ride, within the first year after his death, countless works of fiction and non-fiction were already distorting his true story. Even Pat Garrett, the man who killed him, wrote a biography about him. Over the decades, portrayals of Billy the Kid have changed to fit the needs and views of each era. In the 1920s, after the Wild West had come to an end, books depicted him as a Robin Hood of a bygone, idyllic era. At other times, he was shown as a fearless hero, a violent maniac, or even a martyr for freedom. More than a dozen films and even a ballet have been made about him. Today, Billy still generates millions in tourism revenue for New Mexico, proving that his legend continues to fascinate and be reinvented by generation after generation. Despite dying young, Billy the Kid continues to spark controversies and theories that he might have survived. According to the Vintage News, a man named Brushy Bill claimed to be the famous outlaw in the 1940s in Texas. He managed to convince some locals and even a lawyer, all of whom were contemporaries of Billy, that he was the real deal. Brushy Bill even petitioned the governor of New Mexico for an official pardon, but he couldn't convince him. Until his death in 1950, he stuck to his claim and wanted his tombstone to read, AKA Billy the Kid. More than 160 years after Billy the Kid's birth, the fascination with his figure is still alive and growing, blending reality with fiction. The truth seems to matter less than the power of his legend. Check out our latest videos for more intriguing stories like this, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated on your favorite outlaws.